Hi, welcome to Top Producer Mindset. My name is Serafin Rodarte. I'm the Director of Operations here for Equity Smart Home Loans. And this is the podcast where we interview top producers and learn how they became the top of their field. I'm joined today by Steve Kim, our VP of Sales here at Equity Smart Home Loans. Steve, why don't you just say a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, happy to be here. Been doing loans for 20 years now. Been at Equity Smart for most of those years. Can't believe it's been that long, but yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
So I have done a few things different this time. So I want to be able to have our viewers learn a lot in a little bit of time. So I created this new segment that we're going to do really quickly, and it's just a lightning round.
All right.
Okay.
I'm ready.
I'm going to ask you some questions. You're just going to say, well, first thing that comes to mind, and we'll recap at the end of it. Sound good?
Perfect. That sounds good.
All right. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. First job you ever had?
I was at a mall, the kiosk.
A kiosk? What kind of
We sold license plate frames that you could engrave. I was making $6 an hour
Oh,
minimum
wow.
wage.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's really cool. Favorite book?
Favorite book. I do like Atomic Habits.
Okay, got it. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Good question. Go back in time.
Okay, go back in time.
Yeah.
What's one thing most people don't know about you?
I'm a huge sports guy. I love different sports, especially NFL. Chargers is my team.
Awesome, got it. What's your zodiac sign?
Virgo. But I don't really know too much about zodiacs. I don't really recognize the stars in the sky and then all that universe. I don't really pay attention, but I am a Virgo.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
What's something you miss from your childhood?
I miss having to enjoy life without having a screen in front of me 24/7.
Got it.
So not yeah,
I
not
feel
being
that.
yeah,
I
so
feel
not being
that.
attached to everything, having the freedom and
Like to
not
disconnect
yeah,
almost,
the
huh? Yeah.
disconnection exactly. That's what I was looking for.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl for sure.
If you weren't in this career, what would you be doing?
I think about that all the time. I'm not quite sure what I would be doing, to be honest. It would
Okay.
have to do with sales, though.
Okay, got
Something
it.
with sales.
Got it, got it. Okay, and last question, probably the most controversial question. Does pineapple belong on pizza? Yes or no?
And when I was a kid, I would say absolutely no, but as I got to an adult, I actually enjoy it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not my favorite topping, but I don't mind it.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, that is our lightning round.
Nice. All
Thank
right.
you for indulging me. That's the first time we've done it, but I wanted to, get us in kinda like that sort of more, like, fun, playful mode when it comes to, these types of questions. Because, like I was mentioning before the podcast, it's really an opportunity for us to share a little bit more, like, beyond kind of like the nuts and bolts of, like,
Yeah,
what we do and more kinda like just the person behind
of
it, right?
course. I understand.
All
That
right.
was fun.
Yeah, you
It
like
was a
it?
lot of
Okay,
fun.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad. So, I wanna ask you just now more about, like, who you were before you got into mortgage. Like, I know we know a lot about you, like, in
Yes.
terms of, like, how you got into it, but, like, before that all happened, like, what were you kinda thinking about? And, like, if you just can mention, like, what led you to finally consider
Yes.
mortgage? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, funny thing is, I actually went to UC San Diego. Went there thinking that I was gonna be a doctor because my parents said I was gonna be a doctor, and if you
Got
go
it,
there, you better
yeah.
be a doctor. When I went to school there, I just didn't like all the science courses. It wasn't for me, so I pivoted. Closest thing to business they had was econ, so I was an economics major. And, yeah, from after I graduated college, didn't know what I wanted to do. There's so many different ways of business. I mean, different types of fields out there. You don't know what,
Right, right, right.
as especially out of college, they don't tell you the specific, options available. There's just so many.
Oh, yeah, you get kinda blindsided the
Yeah.
fact that, like, there's a whole life out there, and how do you make your degree actually mean something,
Exactly. No,
right?
you here's your diploma
Yeah.
and go ahead, start your life. And so I was like
Yeah, I know what you
so
mean.
I actually got into financial advising for a bit. I actually
Okay.
worked for a financial advisor. I was making cold calls, trying to set up client calls. I at the time, .com was pretty big, so I did
Okay.
an internship. I flew out to San Francisco. I was doing an internship up there for a while.
Okay.
After 6 months, that company went under, so I
Ooh,
flew back
the
down.
bubble, yeah.
Yeah, and then, funny enough, I actually was still trying to decide what I was gonna do, still doing financial advising, but I didn't enjoy it, and I met up with a friend I haven't seen in several years.
Mhm.
This was a couple years after I graduated. We haven't seen each other since we graduated,
Yeah.
And we went to a restaurant, and while we're eating, a person walked in that actually knew my friend, and he was supposed to meet someone else, but that
Mm,
guy and the other person canceled on him. So we had him join us, and he ended up being a loan officer at Countrywide at the time.
okay, got it.
Young guy, he was actually Vietnamese, name is Michael Tran. Michael Tran, if you're out there, I owe you a lot for getting me into this industry. So
Nice,
he
yeah,
actually
I
was
like
the
that.
top producer of his company. He had a
Okay.
Rolex watch. He was driving a Mercedes, young guy.
Yeah, yeah.
He had a heavy accent,
Okay.
but he said he was the top producer. And
Uh-huh.
I was like, "Hey, are you guys hiring?" It's like, "Yes, we are." So I got his number. And the funny thing is, I called him the next day. I'm like, "Hey, Michael, I'm really excited for this opportunity. Can you get me an interview?" And he was asking me some questions. And after a little bit of time, he's like, "You know what, Steve? I don't know if this is the right field for you. I don't know
Mhm.
if you'll do well."
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so obviously
So
I was
the
crushed.
first thing he's like saying, "Hey, maybe not for you, guy."
Yeah, so
Maybe
I don't know
okay,
if you're the
got it.
right guy because I wasn't
Yeah.
really talkative and I'm not good at sales at the time.
Oh,
I was a little
got
more
you.
timid back
Uh-huh,
then.
uh-huh,
But but sure enough, he was a top producer. He at least got me the interview and I was a shoo-in because he was top producer.
uh-huh.
So I got the job and that started my career. I started doing loans at
Wow.
Countrywide. They had a really good training program for newer LOs. And then that's where I started my career.
That's
But
a
so I owe you, Michael Tran, wherever you are. Yeah.
That's amazing. So
Yes.
it's so interesting, right? How you go from like someone saying, "Okay, maybe this is not right the not the right industry for you, the right role for you, or whatever he said," to like you now having this sort of like recognition as being a top producer, right? Yeah,
Absolutely, and
yeah,
it's funny how life brings you curveballs, and what I realize is whenever there's an opportunity, you gotta seize that opportunity. It's not about, uh, it's about meeting the right people, but when you see an opportunity, you gotta grab it, and I
definitely,
felt, in that situation, I said, "Hey, can I get your number? Is it okay if I reach out to you?"
definitely.
And it worked out.
So quick question. You decided to call Mike, right? This is his name,
Yeah,
Mike.
Michael,
You
yes.
decided to call Mike the day after, right? Like
Correct.
what was like the like motivation or desire in you to like be like, you know what, I want to jump on this opportunity right now.
Couple reasons, his Rolex watch and
Okay, got
his
it.
Mercedes.
That'll help. Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then aside from that,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just didn't like what I was doing as a
Okay,
financial advisor.
got it.
No, not to say anything negative about financial advisors. Obviously, it's a great career,
Uh
but
huh.
at the time, I did a ton of cold calls, all
Got
day,
it.
and
Yeah,
I didn't enjoy it.
got it.
And
Yeah,
so I thought, this is a good opportunity. And mortgage is not one of those careers most people think about when you're graduating college.
mhm,
It's usually someone will kind of introduce you to it.
right.
So yeah, and I didn't want to risk losing that opportunity, so I called him immediately.
I get you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
cold calling is particularly brutal. I don't know if I've told you, but I used to work in, like, political campaigns when,
Oh
like
yeah,
yeah,
I remember you told me. Yeah,
and the
yeah.
first thing they have you do actually is, they have you call people to see if, like, you can count on their support, and
Yes, and donations, right?
my god, it was brutal.
Here's the phone book, boom.
"Hey,
Yeah,
hey, we need
yeah,
you to call 250 people today,"
exactly.
and it's so funny, just it's a sidebar, but I do remember that, I would, like, be nervous. I was only, like, 18 or 19, I think.
Yes, yes, yes.
So nervous that, like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna call this person, I don't know who they are." All the stuff you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
through.
yeah. I
And
know exactly what you're
and
talking
then
about.
I spend the first 40 calls like, "Is no one answering the freaking call? What's
Or
going
like
on?"
I would
You
start
know?
stuttering when you're talking and then they hang up on
I
you
know,
and
it's
then
like,
yeah.
oh, I had a split second to actually get them interested and whatever,
Well,
right?
the
So
worst is when the manager's hovering over you while you're making calls and then they see you
you're
stuttering and you're
sweating.
sweating and then you get hung up on. They're like, "You gotta call him right back. You better call him back." And so, yeah, but
I get
obviously
it,
I
I get it.
appreciate that too because I
Yeah,
learned a lot from it, but
right.
at the time, I just didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I feel like it's what they get people to do to, like, really, like, try you out and see if you're able to, like, get through the grunt work,
100%,
But,
yeah.
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
But
about, I
it's
had
a
to do
str
the same thing.
especially in the real estate industry, being able to call people is a very important skill.
100%,
But,
yeah,
I mean, right out of college, I didn't really have a lot of, good skills in terms of calling people, so,
definitely.
yeah, it
What
wasn't fun at the time, that's for sure, yeah,
But it gives you appreciation, right?
100%.
Yeah. So, okay, you spoke a little bit like what brought you into mortgage.
Sure,
Now, what brought you into working at Equity Smart Home Loans?
very good question. So, as I mentioned, I got into Countrywide, I was there for about a year, year and a half, and at the time, they had a lot of changes there, a lot of companies make changes, and I thought there's other opportunities, so I ended up getting a job at Chase doing home loans
Right.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
And we did, the bigger banks are very conservative in their financing options.
Right.
So I actually had a lot of deals I couldn't close because it just didn't fit the box. So there was a coworker there. His name's Alan. He introduced me to Pablo
Mm,
at the time, and then from there, he would send Pablo his turndowns. From there, I would start referring my turndowns to Pablo. And then over
Mm,
time, Bob was like, "Hey, if you wanna, be a lifelong loan officer, you need to be on the broker side because we have
right.
all these loan options." I didn't wanna leave because I had a nice salary, I was making decent commission,
Mhm.
had my benefits, but, just having several conversations with Pablo, he finally convinced me to make the change, and
Yeah.
I haven't looked back ever since. It's like 2004? Yeah, it's been 20 years. I said 19 years,
Wow.
it's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
20 years now.
That's amazing,
Yeah, I've
right?
known
Yeah.
Pablo for 20 years.
I
Yeah, it's
know, I
crazy.
know, and I
He
mean
looks the same. He still looks the same.
I think
Yeah.
you might look I was just telling you this earlier, I think when we were at NAMM in Vegas. You still look, like, remarkably, like, well in terms of not having aged that much.
It's the red wine.
It's
It's the
the
red wine
okay,
and yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Okay, more red wine, I think, for all of us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in one of your videos, right, we did a little bit of a, social media kind of review for you. One of
Sure.
your videos, you mentioned that being a loan officer is a lot like being a doctor. What did you mean by that?
Very good question.
Yeah.
So when you're a doctor, you gotta make sure if someone says, "Hey, my leg hurts," you don't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna," okay, if your leg hurts, you should get a massage and maybe take these pills to fix your leg. That
Mhm,
could be it, or get some physical therapy. But at the end of the day, that may not be the issue. It could be something else. So being a doctor, you got to evaluate the whole situation, take the blood pressure, look at, maybe take blood tests. It could be any number of things that's causing that pain,
mhm.
and then figuring out a solution.
Right,
As a loan officer, it's the exact same thing. Every person's different. Their financial background's different, their credit, how much they have for a down payment. So understanding what their pain points are, what their goals are,
mm,
and figuring out a product that fits their specific needs is extremely important.
yeah,
There's loan officers out there that'll just say, "Hey, just take this loan," without even getting to know where the customer is coming from, what
right,
they really want in terms of, and what they're comfortable paying.
definitely.
So, understanding the whole situation of the borrower is extremely important before deciding on a loan product.
Yeah, I like that sort of that analogy that you're making or parallel in the sense that you gotta, like, really know who you're who you're dealing with, right? Before you
100%.
recommend anything, right? Because like you mentioned, what one of the things that's really important is you don't wanna, like, kinda cram someone into a product or mold that ultimately
Yes,
isn't gonna be right for them, right? And, I think that's something that, a lot appeals to a lot of loan officers that make their way over to our channel, is that we have so much flexibility for loan officers and their
agreed,
clients, right?
agreed,
Like,
yes.
I mean, we have like 150 lenders that we work with.
Over 150,
Or
but
oh, there you
yes,
go.
yes.
Over 150 lenders, and we always add, right? We always add, and really all their products become products that we get to offer our clients too. And I think that's something that your clients, because I do see that you get quite a bit of reviews, especially on Yelp, where your clients are just really thrilled about the type of service that you deliver to them.
I'm actually very proud of that
Yeah.
too, and, as a loan officer, I realized you always need to ask for reviews
Mhm.
because they're not gonna you can't assume they're gonna automatically write you a review unless you
Right.
ask for it.
Right.
So,
Right.
not only, I mean, I appreciate the customers writing those reviews, but I
Yeah.
also made sure to ask them every time.
One of the things actually now we're in it. I'm kind of curious. What to you like would warrant like a 5-star review on Yelp?
So being there for the customer literally 24/7 is my motto, and I
Yeah.
tell all the loan officers that if you wanna be a successful loan officer, making sure you're communicating and always available is very important. Even if you're in a meeting, or let's say if you can't respond right away, if someone calls you, I always text back, "Hi, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back." They just wanna be acknowledged. I've met so many customers that said, "Hey, my last experience with a loan officer was terrible because I couldn't reach him for several days, and I had questions and concerns, and our closing date was in a week and a half." And this is their biggest purchase of their life for the most part, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
if you're not there for them and they know that they're not being watched out for, it could be a very anxiety-ridden process.
Definitely.
Yeah, so being there for them, I pick up calls on late night and on weekends, even if I'm with my family and we're out of town on vacation, I make sure to respond. Or if it's not something that's urgent, I'll tell them, "Hey, I'm on vacation. Can I get back to you Monday?" But if it's something urgent, I'll set aside time to, spend the time to talk to the customer and cover the situation. But yeah, I would say being very responsive is probably the number one reason I was able to be as successful as I am.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of priority on communication, actually.
100%.
And so, you're just kind of I have these questions now that are coming up. So a lot of I think what I see with some loan officers too is like it's not always good news, right? Like sometimes
Yes.
sometimes it's like, oh, I'm avoiding a conversation, you
Yes,
know?
that's
And,
true.
and that can some and I always like remind like people that are in our industry, like we're all emotional beings, like we deal
Yes.
with stress. That's so perfectly normal. But how do you in particular deal with those stressful situations when you have to deliver bad news?
That's a very good question. Actually, when I was starting off as a loan officer, when I had bad news to give, let's say
Okay.
something changed where it was out of my control, or it could have been something I made a mistake on when I
Yeah.
was starting out. I would try to avoid mentioning it until the very end
Oh, got it,
because
got
I
it.
didn't wanna do it. I just
Right,
felt like,
right,
"Oh,
right.
I don't know if I should call him, I'll call him later." I tried to
Yeah,
shove it under the rug,
yeah.
but I realized that's the worst thing you could do. When there's an issue, you need to tackle it head on
Yeah,
immediately.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
"Hey, customer, this is what happened. It's not ideal, but here are possible solutions." I tell the agent, "Look, this is what happened, but here are some solutions to overcome this issue."
Right,
So once you tackle it and they're aware, obviously they may not be happy initially, but they'll understand it and they'll be appreciative that you mentioned it right away
right.
and you had solutions.
Mhm.
But
Definitely.
I definitely don't contact a customer without solutions in place. You don't
Right.
want to say, "Here's the bad news," but and then, "Okay, I'll call you later."
The house is on fire.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it.
No, no, it's like the house on fire, the firemen are coming, the ambulance is coming.
Right, right,
I
right, right,
got,
right.
I'm in front of
I'm
your house
bringing
with
water. I'm
I'm
bringing
in front of
water.
your house with my hose. I'm trying to, you gotta
I
figure
love
out
that. I
solutions.
love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
definitely. And show I think at the end of the day that you're there with them,
100%.
right? Because I do notice that it's just a feature of any sort of industry if you've been there long enough, like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to get to a point where there is bad news you have to deliver, and like you mentioned, it's,
Yes.
like, not in our control sometimes, right? So, knowing how to just, like, be there with the person and, empathize with them and be like, "But I'm here with you," right? And ultimately, we're gonna get through this together, I think actually builds that relationship that those customers that will, like, remember for as long as they
They'll
remember
appreciate
you,
it.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they don't, but yeah, for the most part.
Sometimes they
But
don't.
let me give you an
Sometimes they
example
don't.
though.
Yeah, yeah,
Recently
yeah,
that
yeah.
happened to a
Yeah.
loan that I recently
Okay.
closed.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're a week away from the closing date. The closing date was on a Friday and it was the Friday before. When you get a loan approved, there are situations where you can get what is called an appraisal waiver,
Mhm.
where the lender does not require an appraisal at all. They run a program, and if it accepts the value, and they don't require an appraisal. Now, up until the end of the loan, a week before closing, everything was fine. But there's a few changes that happened to the loan, and then they had to rerun that program to see if it's still approved.
Got it.
But the appraisal waiver fell off. And
Oh,
we tried
shoot.
every which way to get the waiver back by rerunning the program with different ways, but it didn't happen,
Oh, wow.
and we had to close in a week. And I had to call the agent, I had to call the customer, "Look, I don't have the best news, we need an appraisal now."
Uh-huh.
What I went ahead and did is but here's what I did. I called an appraisal company that we're working with. I was able to I paid for it myself, by the way, I paid for
Uh-huh.
the appraisal.
Uh-huh.
I paid a rush to have the appraiser go out there the next day on a Saturday. The report was turned in the following Monday. Normally, it takes a week for an appraisal to be issued,
Yeah.
but I got it done within 2 days, and then it got cleared by the Tuesday, and we were still able to close on time, like nothing happened. I
Wow.
covered the fee,
Yeah.
but typically, you have to figure out a solution. Need to know how to pivot
Right.
and not just dwell on the issue.
Uh-huh.
If there's an issue, you can't just like, oh, start. I know people. I used to do this too, where you just constantly think about, oh man, this is so terrible. What am I gonna do?
Right.
No, you got to think of a solution right away, move forward, and then let everyone know what's going on.
Definitely,
And
definitely.
then luckily it worked out. It doesn't always work out the way it did,
Mhm, mhm.
but
But
that
that
situation
sort of
worked out.
quick thinking in terms of like, okay, I'm accepting that there's a problem here, and
Yes,
I'm gonna try and find a solution for it, as opposed to like, oh, I wish it never came. I wish there
correct.
was never a problem. It's like
Yes,
you're beyond that now. You're just like, I'm getting straight to the fact that I know that there's an issue. I have no control over it. If I just look at it and just wish it away, let me figure out what I can do with the tools I have. Right? Yeah.
100%. And another thing I did is there's other appraisals that weren't as urgent. So I told the appraisal manager, "Hey, can you postpone these ones a little bit, and then let's get this one in the front of the line because this is extremely important."
Got
So you
it.
got to
Yeah.
figure out ways to pivot and figure out a
Yeah, I
solution.
love that. I love that. I think that not a lot of people realize that, especially like in our role. Yeah, there are things that happen out of our control, but there's a lot of control
Yes,
we still do have,
exactly,
right? And
exactly,
and one of the things that I think you're mentioning that like really should be highlighted is that communication, like a lot of it, also leads to better collaboration, right?
100%.
And so knowing who you can count on in your team, right, and not just internally, right, but across the different professionals we work with to say like, "Hey, appraiser, like this is the situation. I have a client here.
Yeah.
Let's what can we do?" Right? Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah, definitely.
exactly, and that also strengthened my relationship with the agent because they're able to realize if an issue happens, Steve knows how to fix it
Right,
quickly
exactly.
and then get the job done.
100%. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, so I'm gonna pivot quickly now to something a little bit different. I hear that you have helped quite a few sports stars over the years as you've originated. Who is the most famous sports star celebrity you've done a loan for?
I haven't done a lot of loans with super famous
Damn
people.
it.
I to be quite honest, but
I'm gonna
to
talk to the production team
yeah,
about
yeah.
this.
No, but it's partially true. I've done a lot of loans for people that are behind the scenes,
Yeah.
like editors for major movies. I don't wanna name them.
Uh-huh.
Sound guys,
Okay, got it.
and they're well known. If you look
Mhm.
them up on IMDb, they have a big resume.
Right, right, right.
So, not the forefront people like actors, but
Right,
I've
right,
done
right.
a lot of big, like,
Like
people
connected
behind the
people.
scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
producers, things like that. But
Got
people
it.
like
Yeah.
that, but I don't wanna name any
I
names.
get you. I got it.
And I did a loan
NDAs.
for,
NDAs are in process right
I did a
now.
loan for a singer too of a famous group.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
awesome,
I'll
awesome.
tell you later. I'll tell you
Don't
later.
worry. Can you
Yeah.
yeah, next time what we'll do, you tell us and we'll just bleep it out so people, like,
Yeah,
just get
yeah.
it. Yeah.
We'll just turn the music on in the background. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Can you share a defining moment, in your career as a loan officer that contributed to your success as a top producer?
One of the most defining moments was with, I actually got really close with the, owner of a real estate company,
Okay.
and I met him through one of his agents, and the agent said, "Hey, I wanna introduce you to my boss." And at first, he was standoffish,
Mhm, mhm.
because obviously there's so many lenders out there trying to earn their business, and then I asked if I could take them out to dinner and happy hour, and then I took a group of them out, and we had a great time, and we didn't to the best part of it, we didn't talk about real estate, we didn't talk about loans.
Right.
We're talking about the football game that was happening. He had a different team, and I had my team, and they're playing each other,
Yeah.
his team ended up winning, but when I was leading, I was like, "Hey, we got you." It was just having a good time with these people without focusing on real estate and loans because we
Got
deal
you.
with that every day. We wanna be able to enjoy ourselves and think about other things and enjoy our other hobbies.
Yeah.
So that, through that connection, I met a lot of his agents, and I did a lot of loans for them, and that
Yeah.
was a pivotal part of my career.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
glad to hear. Yeah, and that there's something you said, right? Like you can't underestimate the human connection,
100%.
right? A lot of times, I think we think as like we as professionals, right? People want to hear all like the information that we have to offer, and that's how they'll trust us. But ultimately, they trust us by showing that we're someone that can be trusted, right? Being personal, being a little vulnerable sometimes, and just being a person
Yeah,
actually.
100%.
And then they just want to know, hey, can will Steve be there for me when things get a little difficult? Does he know how to help me ultimately get to where I want to get to? Right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
and
it's a
when I text
feeling,
him,
right?
if his team's playing, I'll text him about the game, a good game.
Yeah.
I don't mention loans at all. It's just you gotta have that human connection and the friendship. It's having friendships is extremely important.
Um. So I'm curious. You have reached that title of top producer. Did did you have a mentor that helped get you there?
Yeah, I did actually.
Uh-huh.
Pablo Martinez has been an integral mentor in my life
Oh, really? Okay.
ever since
Yeah.
I actually switched over to the broker side.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I would say a loan master in a sense
Yeah.
because he knows all the guidelines. Obviously, guidelines change,
Yeah.
but he's always been up to date. And, one of the biggest things is, he like the golden rule, but he's big on that, treat people how you wanna be treated. I realize that goes so far. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how successful you are, how much money you make, it doesn't matter. You always gotta treat people the way you wanna be treated. And then I see it in him, and I've actually learned so much from him, so I'd say he's been one of my biggest mentors,
No,
yeah.
I do. And just for everyone, again, the Paul Martinez is our CEO and broker at Equity Smart Home Loans. And I have to say that is one of my favorite rules that he always talks about. Sometimes you realize that like the most impactful things are the most simple,
100%.
right? And we don't have to overcomplicate like being a good human being,
I can agree more.
because actually, like I was mentioning earlier, like people just want to trust you, right? And they can trust you when they know that you're going to look after them like you will look after yourself or people close to you.
Yes.
And I think that is part of the reason why here at like at our company, Equity Smart, right, we just have so many loan officers that really buy into what we do because ultimately we're like we're treating everyone how we wish we were treated, with how like almost like we're creating the company that we wish we had when we were
Yes.
growing, you know?
And when I was at other companies where it's all like kind of boiler room or even
Mhm.
countrywide, it's
Yeah.
like all about you better close these deals and see where we're at. If you're not closing these
It's like
deals,
the cut line or
like
like, "If you don't make more than these, you're
yeah,
out by
no,
the end of the month."
yeah, it was very stressful and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
hard quotas, I know, I heard.
but everyone's gonna everyone's going through issues of deals with their deals every
Mhm.
day, and there's all these things that you don't know what they're going through on a personal
Right,
level that has nothing to do with work. So you gotta be very empathetic towards that. You never know,
right,
and it won't hurt you to open a door for someone that has groceries in their hands.
right.
Try to be as kind as you can because it goes a long way, and it's not gonna take much of your time, and it's just the right thing to do.
Agreed,
Yeah,
agreed. Okay, I'm gonna take us back to 2021.
sure.
Okay, 2021, we were in the middle of the craziest time in recent history. We were in that pandemic,
Yes,
and you managed to become the top producer for Equity Smart. You reached a total of $105 million in loans funded in volume, in terms of volume. What did you do that year to make that happen? Because that's an insane amount.
I did. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Well, it was good. Obviously, I'm very proud of it, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I literally was on the phone 24/7. I
Got it.
was sleeping at 1 or 2 in the morning, helping with because I had at one point like 60 files in my pipeline in at one time
Yeah.
because I closed 32 loans in 1 month.
Yeah, that was June of 2021,
Yeah,
actually. I
so
remember that because I have never seen that happen before, guys. Averaging more than a loan a day is
it was
crazy.
crazy,
It's
but
crazy.
I mean, yeah, but so
Yeah.
I work
Yeah.
so after hours where I wasn't talking to people and everyone's sleeping, that's when I would submit files. Sometimes the processors were backed up. It was crazy because everyone's busy, right? So I would submit my own files. I would upload the conditions that I have and not wait till for the processor to do it. I know a lot of loan officers will just push everything to the processor and they don't want to get their hands dirty. But if you want to be successful and close your deals quickly,
Yeah.
you need to get down and dirty, upload the conditions,
Yeah.
tell the processor, "Hey, I took care of this and this. You don't have to worry about it. All you need to do is take care of this now."
Yeah.
So you're taking 10 things off the processor's plate when they have 20 other loan officers they're helping. So if you wanna close deals quickly, you gotta step in and actually, close do what you can to close the deals.
Got it, got it.
Yeah, that's
So
very
so
important.
so for you then, like, in 2021, it was all about, like, "Okay, you know what? Everyone's busy. I'm gonna get myself in there. Maybe I'm not normally doing these things for
Correct,
like with the
yes.
processor, but you know what?" And it was true actually because everybody was slammed.
Yes,
Everybody was
yes.
slammed. Um, you got in there basically, and you're
I
like, "You know
did.
what? Let me help where I can."
I did. I would say, a big portion of the time I was if I had some downtime, I was trying to figure out how I could get conditions cleared.
Mhm. Definitely. So, I remember, like now this is again, like, switching topics. There was a time I can't remember when exactly, but you were very active on social media, right? You were,
Yes,
like, posting. I think you had, like, a Sprouts video as well that
I
was, like,
did,
for
and
some reason, I always remember that because I think Sprouts
a
reposted
lot
it.
of friends yeah, Sprouts, they didn't repost it, but they liked it.
Oh, they liked it. There you
Yeah,
go, there you
so I'll
go.
take
Little
it.
win, little win.
Sprouts, free sandwich on you next time. Yeah,
But, what I wanted to ask you, right? Because we always hear from everyone, like, that's sometimes not a loan officer, "Hey, just get on social media, do
sure.
this, do that."
Yeah,
But for someone that actually started doing social media and was very, very consistent with it, what advice do you have to some of our loan officers that may be kind of on the fence as to like whether or not they should be doing it, or just that kind of like awkward, first, few weeks where you're trying to get into the habit of it?
very good question. So that actually hits home, that question for me,
Yeah.
because I've never been one to be in front of cameras. I didn't really enjoy it for a long time. It's not something that I was naturally comfortable with. I guess most people aren't.
Right.
But so we had that contest, remember? Where we had
Yeah,
all
I do
yeah,
remember that.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 I
So we had a
do.
contest where we have all the loan officers create a social media page.
We should do that
Yeah,
again.
we
Yeah,
should do
yeah,
that
yeah,
again.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
actually for Instagram.
Yeah, I remember.
And so I created my own business Instagram page,
Uh,
and then Pablo was doing it too, and Pablo wasn't really doing social media at the time.
uh.
And so me and Pablo are sitting down, we're like, "Hey, if we're gonna tell the loan officers to do it, we
We
need to
gotta
do
do
it
it
ourselves,"
ourselves.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
initially, I'll just post like quotes or like informational posts without me saying anything. But over time, I started doing some videos, and I remember the first couple videos, I would like do like 1,000 retakes Like, if something little's off,
I
I'll do a
remember.
retake,
Yeah.
and then I realized it's never gonna be perfect, so I just put
Right.
it out there, and I got some good feedback, and then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
put it out there again. So my retakes got less and less, and it got to a point where I'm not gonna, like, half-ass it, but I would not be as critical as I thought I should be,
Right.
because as long as a message is given out in a way where they understand it, that's most important. And so I've gotten, like, over 5,000 views in certain situations. I've met 4 new agents I would never have met otherwise, and it was from people reposting my posts
Mhm.
or, people liking and following me, and I'll do the
Right.
same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So literally to this day, I haven't been active for about a year now. I haven't because since I took the VP of sales role, I'm making excuses, right?
It's
I
okay,
need to
it's
do it
okay. I
again,
get it.
but I
No,
took
it's
some time
hard, it's
off. When
hard.
you
Yeah,
take time off, it's hard to it's just like
get
not
back
going
into
to
it.
like, if you stop going to the gym, it's hard to get
Exact I
back.
was gonna say it's like,
But, yeah, I'm
yeah,
gonna
same
get
thing.
back into it soon. But I actually met other loan officers that liked and followed me, and I'll do the same. And for example, a guy that I met at a credit union, they didn't do certain types of loans, and then he would send me business. And there are certain loans that we weren't as good at, so I would send it to him because the customer would have went somewhere else.
Yeah.
99% of the time, we're the right place for the loan, but there's the one offers that are a very, very rare situation, so I would send it to him. And so I've met even potentially my competition, and we would refer each other business.
That's
So
amazing,
it's just
right?
the
Yeah,
power of
yeah.
social media. You don't know who you're gonna meet, and I've met clients that would just, DM me directly just from my posts.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
it is powerful, and, half the time I'm in my office or in my car posting these videos
Yeah.
or recording these videos.
It's so funny because I remember the first time I started getting involved, I started trying to post, and if anyone's looked at my social media, they'll notice I haven't posted, like, in years, and then
Yeah.
I just recently started doing it again.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Me too.
I
I
was a
understand.
perfectionist to the
Yeah.
max, and I remember there was one time it's so ridiculous. I decided to come in, like, at 6 in the morning or something,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Okay, part of my morning routine, I'm gonna do a post, whatever," right?
Yes.
I only, like, boxed 30 minutes of time for it,
Yeah.
and before I know it, it's, like, 9 AM, so, like, I spent 3 hours on doing this.
On the same
I on
video.
the same video,
Yeah.
and I look at, like, all the takes I took,
Yeah.
and there's, like, 60 little, like, 5 to, like, 2-minute clips of, like, what I was trying to do. I'm like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
"What's
And
wrong
you
with
look at the
me?"
drafts, there's like 100 drafts in your draft box. You're
Yeah.
like, "Ah."
I think
But
people can
yeah,
relate to that, right? Like
100%. I'm
yeah.
sure most people out there that are posting
Yeah, but I think, and just to your point, it's it's not supposed to be so serious, right? You're
100%,
you're
yeah.
you're you're just trying to get something across and make yourself known, and in fact, sometimes those imperfections are like what people like really respect. Is like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, he's just a person, right? He's not
yeah.
like super polished, have like all the filters on or whatever, right? So yeah, I
Yeah,
just
the funny thing too is you're never gonna be perfect, and sometimes people ask you to give suggestions as to what's gonna happen with rates in the future. And, we recently saw, at a seminar where one of the, people were, sharing how when they share information that ends up not being correct, they just delete it later. Yeah.
yeah, I remember
Yeah,
Neil.
yeah, yeah.
Neil
Neil,
said
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
he
yeah,
said
yeah.
that. I
So,
was all like, oh
yeah,
yeah,
if you
you're
make a
right.
mistake, just delete it later. It's just like people are gonna forget. Don't worry about it, you
It's the
know?
most obvious thing,
Yeah.
yet at the same time, no one's thinking they can do that for some reason,
Yeah, you don't have to just keep it there.
yeah,
Yeah, but, I
so
mean
funny. That's
but I've never made that mistake.
there you go, yeah,
Yeah.
not that anyone would know, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
funny.
exactly.
Okay. Over your years in the industry, what is the transaction that you're most proud of for getting across the finish line?
Wow, that's a very good question. I never thought of that because I've had several where I've had a lot of like hurdles at once. Like we call it like putting out fires.
Mhm, mhm.
I can't really pinpoint one particular. Oh, I have an outcome that I could share with you
Okay.
that I'm actually proud of this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, and still a friend of mine to this day. So this customer, he was referred by another customer, past client of mine, and he was turned down by 5 different loan officers because he's trying to refinance,
Mm,
and he just didn't qualify. At the time, that's when rates were low in the, high 2s and low 3s.
mhm, mhm.
He had a 5.5% rate. He had all this credit card debt, and I was able to help him refinance and lower his rate from 5.5 to like 2.625,
Mm.
paid off 35,000 credit card debt, and he was saving like 1,800 a month. And he said, "Steve, you literally changed my life." I seriously I talked to 5 other lenders, and I looked at the credit history. There's credit pulls from all these different mortgage companies,
Uh-huh.
and there's just a couple things that the other loan officers didn't see that I saw that made the loan work. So I'm very proud of it, and he referred me to his good friend that's an agent that exclusively uses me to this day, and
Yeah.
that was he said, "You have to use this guy's awesome." So that his good friend that's an agent ended up, working with me, and we still work together.
Wow.
And we still check in on each other all the time, but he's like, "Steve, you're the man."
He's
He's
probably still
yeah.
locked in that house
Yeah,
then.
he is, he is. He hasn't moved, he has no reason
Yeah.
to move, but anytime he's always bringing up he says, "When I'm at family gatherings, I always bring you up to see if anyone's looking for a loan."
Uh-huh.
And I really appreciate it because he's a big advocate for me.
That's
But yeah,
amazing.
that one, I changed his life
Yeah.
because he was living
$1,800 a month saved. That is pretty
that's like net,
wild.
and
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
was living paycheck to paycheck where he's going to his credit cards to pay the bills, and now he was saving money. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Dang,
it's,
that's
yeah, it's
amazing.
life-changing.
That is
Yeah, yeah,
life-changing.
yeah,
That's awesome. I always
yeah,
like asking people that question because, especially when I think have done so many loans, sometimes there's just so many things that are happening, right? That we forget some of those like real special transactions that have happened. And
yes,
we're really driving impact for those borrowers. Cause like I always remind people like there are families and people on the other side of our loans that
100%.
really benefit from the work that we do.
Agreed, agreed, and, I mean, it worked out really well. I'm so glad I was able to figure out a solution, and I could see why the other loan officers thought they couldn't do it, but yeah, it worked out really well in the end.
That's awesome. Okay. So I want to ask you um something that's a little funny.
Sure.
You're unfortunately a Chargers fan.
Fortunately and unfortunately at the same time, yes.
Yeah.
We have Harbaugh now. Justin Herbert isn't playing that well, but he's gonna get
I
his
had him on
legs back.
fantasy last year, and yeah, he. Anyways, were you two? Were
That
you?
was a low blow, by the way, but
No,
it's
no, no.
okay,
He
it's
was my
okay.
favorite. I honestly
No,
love.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love
No,
I
he's
love
a
the
good
Chargers,
player, it's
but
just we'll figure it
I
out.
was in the playoffs, and then I got I got.
I understand, yeah.
It's not your fault. We're,
But
we're,
it's a story of Chargers lives.
oh, got it.
Happened for
It's
many
a, it's
years,
a it's a
yeah,
tragedy, huh? Were
yeah.
you born into that fandom, or did you like acquire that over time?
Well, yeah, good question. So I went to school at UC San Diego. I never really had a football team. We had the Rams, but they left. We had the Raiders, they left, and I was never a big football fan growing up.
Okay,
So, when I went to San Diego, I would go to a lot of
got
games, and
it.
I had
Okay,
friends
that
that
makes
are big
sense.
fans,
Yeah,
and I just adopted them at that time.
that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, and since then, it's been heartbreak. Every year, it's been just heartbreak
That's
and
tough. That's tough.
devastation.
I
But
think.
this year, they're actually they're actually they have a winning record this
Oh,
year,
do they
or it's
really?
like even. It's like 3
Oh,
and
we'll take
3.
it, right? We'll take it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a win. That's actually a winning record
Neutral's
for
winning.
me, yeah, for the Chargers.
How do you stay motivated? I'm just really curious. I want to make this more simple. Just how do you stay motivated? Because, for the past few years,
Yeah,
right, especially when the rates were high and everything,
sure.
it was, there was not as much business happening, and people honestly some of them were dropping out of the industry. We saw lenders that were folding, all this
Yes,
kind of stuff,
yes.
right? So, question for me is like, how did you stay motivated when all that was going down?
Very good question. It's obviously one of the biggest motivations, my family, making sure they're taken care of. I'm saving money for college. I have 2 young daughters, 10 and 7. Hi, Sydney, Evie. I love you both so much.
Oh,
But yeah, so, you know, knowing that I have their future, that I have to think of, because everything's getting so expensive. By the
oh
time our
yeah.
kids have to buy a house, can you imagine? The homes are gonna be they're ridiculous now, but
Either
it's
I
gonna be
know.
yeah. So, obviously, my family's, my wife too, I appreciate her so much, but aside from my family, uh, it may sound cliche, but knowing that I can make a difference in a family's life and, I could help them any way possible to get the right deal, and I've told customers in situations, "Don't go with me, go with this loan lender or this loan officer because it's a better loan for you for your situation," even though they wanted to go with me. So being able to not think of doing the right thing, doing the right thing for the customer, do right by the customer,
Definitely.
and those are things that motivate me every day, making sure that I'm helping the customers, and I see it. I see that I make a difference in their lives,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
that's what motivates me.
Yeah, coming from that place of service, right? Like how can
100%,
how can we
yes,
help,
agreed,
right?
agreed,
Definitely.
yeah,
I love that. Okay, I think we came now to the titular question.
sure.
What does being a top producer mean to you?
The top producer aspect of it, it's not really, "Oh, yeah, I'm a top producer," and
Mhm.
I don't really care about that
Yeah.
title,
Yeah.
but just knowing that I'm helping so many homeowners and just like the guy changed his life, I was saving them, with the refinance.
Yeah.
Making a difference in people's lives is a big deal, and especially I do a lot of those for family members and friends, and knowing that they could count on me and I'm gonna take care of them. Because you hear horror stories of loan officers trying to take advantage and overly charging customers when they don't need to. They just wanna, align their pockets, but always doing the right thing, and that's what it's all about of being a top producer.
Got it.
Yeah, it's not the numbers. I mean, obviously, on paper, it's the numbers,
Yeah.
but doing the right thing every time is the top producer mindset, in my
Definitely.
opinion.
And one of the things I really do admire about you, Steve, I always want to say here is I do love like your modesty and humility because I mean, again, 32, I mean, you closed 32 loans in 1 month at one point, right? And over breaking over 100 million in a year. That's like not a lot of people ever accomplish that, sometimes in their entire career, right? So that's amazing. But now I'm gonna take that same question, I'm gonna slightly modify it. What does it mean to have the top producer mindset? Right? Because
Yes.
there's a certain ultimately, right, you were able to achieve something that few ever will, like, get to. What sort of mindset did you need to have in order to make that happen?
That's a very good question. I'd say the biggest mindset you need to have is being able to incorporate your business in your daily life, even on your personal life, but not intrusively.
Mhm.
If you're going to a barbecue, talk to people and ask what they do and bring up loans when the time comes, if it makes sense for real estate. Always find an opportunity in situations where there may not be an opportunity. For example, our FedEx guy in our building, I see him all the time. I say hi. I always try to say hi to people when I see them often, or even for the first time, if I see him, I always say hi. And then I got to know him, and then he ended up needing help with the line of credit, so I helped him with that. Like there's
I
the
love
the
that.
manager in our building that
Yeah.
manages several buildings in our area. I helped him do his purchase just by talking to him.
Uh-huh.
There's always gonna be opportunity there, and you gotta seize that opportunity and talk to people.
Love that.
But it's not being in a way where you're trying to be intrusive, but you just try to talk to people and be nice, and
Just
it's
float it
gonna
out there.
naturally happen.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, so having a top producer mindset is being able to incorporate your business in your daily life, but not negatively
Got it.
impacting it.
Got it, got it.
Yeah.
That sounds kinda difficult,
Yeah.
but just because like, I know, like, having those boundaries for some people, right, can be hard to like, put those in
Yes.
place. But I totally hear you. And that's one thing I do tell other loan officers actually is the importance of just mentioning what you do. And
Agree.
then being someone that people want to work with, right? Like if you mention what you do and be someone that someone wants to work with, like you'll get a lot more business than if you
Agree.
don't do, if you only do one of those things or none of those things, right?
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
never know where you're gonna meet people. The other day, I met me and my daughter went to the park, youngest daughter, and then she was playing with a young girl, and then I noticed the girl's dad. That must be him. He's watching them. Had a conversation with him. He lives in the area. They just moved, and they're renting now, but he eventually wants to buy. So I got his contact information, and I'm gonna help him with his next loan, hopefully. So
Awesome.
you just never know. You
Yeah,
never know.
never know. Okay, so I know that we're coming up on time. I'm getting the flag, but
Yes.
I want to ask, okay, for our loan officers and viewers, can you share a strategy or technique that someone listening to this podcast can start doing today to change their life and also become a top producer in their field?
It's gonna be the same
Okay,
thing I'd mentioned
yeah, yeah,
earlier. Just talking to people, be nice. When you're in the elevator and it gets all quiet, no one say anything, just say, "Hey, how are
I'm a
you
loan
doing?
officer.
How do you, I'm so glad it's not raining or it's not too
Yeah,
hot again today in Southern California."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always, whenever it's a situation where it's kind of a quiet situation, I always try to talk to people
Uh huh.
and just try to talk to as many people as you can. And then eventually you will start having more deeper conversations and you could bring up what each other does.
Hmm.
And that's a good way to get business and just build context. You want to build your Rolodex of contacts and you don't know where they're going to come from. They could come from anywhere, but just getting out of your comfort zone and just being able to talk to people and be nice and be a genuine person and business will come.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for joining us on this today's podcast. I really do appreciate you. I don't know if you have any plugs or social media you want to like throw in there for everyone, anyone
Steve
viewing.
K Loans at, Instagram, but no, I'm happy to be here. Glad to share my story. Hopefully, a couple loan officers learn something new,
Yeah.
and, yeah, there's a lot of business out there, you guys, just go out there and grab it. The opportunity is yours.
Awesome, guys. Well, if you want to follow Steve, he just gave you his handle, Steve K Loans. And you can also work with an amazing loan officer if you're a borrower or a client. You heard a little bit about Steve and the amazing work that he does as being a Equity Smart Loan Officer. And also, for those loan officers or real estate agents that are just curious about learning more of what we do at Equity Smart Home Loans, maybe you're curious about building equity in yourself.
Yes.
I do invite you to visit us at myeshl.com or visit us in the link in the description below. And there you go. There you have it. Until next time, we'll see you later.